lifeblood for this combat outpost out here. They use 1,200 gallons a day here.
There it is.
There they are.
Everything they do relies on fuel. Heat, lights, vehicles going out, and without fuel, these guys should get shut down. They've come close a couple times. I mean, my job is when they get critically close to do whatever I can to get fuel to them so they can stay operational down here. The last convoy that came down here was a couple years ago, so we have to drop every bit of fuel by air. But I'll do another drop next week and another drop the week after that. And my goal is I want to get 70,000 gallons here.
Are they heavy?
Yeah, they're pretty heavy.
These boys are absolutely relying on this down here. Fuel ran out here, be sitting ducks pretty much.
Come on.
We're working hard down here doing a thankless job, and it's a hard lesson. Too bad more people can't experience it.
We have an oil dependency or addiction because just of the way our society operates. It's fueled our economy, and it's not been a burden we couldn't tolerate, and one we were willing to pay to this point.
Oil, gas, coal have been very, very good for the United States. They are a key part of the reason why we're such a great country.
The rhythm of pumping, the unceasing heartbeat of the oil fields. Pumping black magic from the earth, the refinery with its technological towers, minarets of science. Oil means horsepower in a horsepower-using world. And on the open road, well, you know what makes your auto run.
Everything you look at, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, from plastics to transportation to lubrication to anything, toothpaste, I don't care what it is, it's tied to petroleum.
It's why our economy is good, our quality of life is good, and our national security is good. But it's time to start changing.
Let's get up to speed on a developing story now. Tehran's drafted a bill that would close the crucial global shipping route, the Straits of Hormuz.
Iran's Navy is currently carrying out 10 days of naval exercises in the area. It's threatened to close the nearby Strait of Hormuz if the West imposes sanctions on Iran's vital oil exports.
Closing the Strait of Hormuz is such an easy job for the Islamic Republic of Iran's armed forces. I mean, it's actually a basic capability of the Navy.
Well, of course, the US has claimed it won't tolerate the commercially vital route being shut down in any shape or form.
One of the reasons why we're in the Persian Gulf is to maintain the stability of oil. If that's a resource that we might have to get from countries that aren't necessarily friendly to the United States, that's a strategic vulnerability.
Try 43-50.
One of my mission requirements was to ensure the free flow of energy resources from the Middle East. That whole system requires protection. We have to go where the energy resources are and help support stability in the region, things that could stabilize governments, societies, economies. Those things go hand in hand when you're dependent upon the resources that come out of these places. No military in the world has a global reach and global requirements like we do. So it's very extensive and expensive what the military demands.
When we pay $3.50 a gallon for gas at the pump, that's the price. The costs go far beyond that. If we were taking into consideration the costs of deploying forces around the world by the United States military to effectively defend the free flow of the lifeblood of the world economy, we would be paying between $7 and $8 a gallon. That's the cost. We are paying it. We're just not paying it at the pump.
For the last 10 years, we've been at combat. We've had a 250% increase in our communications technologies on the battlefield, over a 300% increase in our surveillance equipment on the battlefield. Force protection raised the vehicle weight up a couple 100%, and our fuel economy's gone down by 30%. So as we've increased all this combat capability, the unintended consequence of all that is we added to the energy burden.
In some ways, we're a business like any other business. And energy is part of our operating budget. And most businesses in this country, they take action to control their costs where they can. And energy as a cost is a huge problem for a lot of companies, particularly because it's so volatile and it can spike.
Oil prices have been fluctuating
12 to 15% price increases in a week.
We're
seeing alarming spikes.
Fears of military action in the country.
Traders are worried the unrest will
Gas
spread.
average well above $4.
All the major stock averages tumbled.
Pirates have seized a supertanker off the coast of Oman. 67 ships have been seized off the Somali coast.
Commander-in-Chief directed the Defense Logistics Agency to buy up to 12 million gallons of unleaded fuel to distribute to areas affected by Hurricane Sandy.
2.5-year high.
The volatility is really what's tough on us. Every time the price goes up so sharply, it does economic damage.
The shutdown could lead to supply shortages.
The Americans were taken off the coast of Nigeria, through which some 30% of the U.S. oil supply moves.
Meanwhile, the oil giant Shell and BP reported making record profits in the first 3 months of the year.
The U.S. Navy maintains a number of warships in that region at all times. Worries about skyrocketing oil prices.
Could eventually hit $200 a barrel.
Where's this going to end? I mean, it seems at the moment bordering on out of control.
There's a tremendous amount of money, Mr. Chairman, being invested by companies. There's oil and gas in the ground. We need to find a way as soon as possible to get it out.
Do you want to put your country first? Drill, baby, drill, and drill now.
I'll fight in the Senate not just for ANWR, the gas pipeline, renewable energy, but also to expand Alaska's refining capacity.
We would love to have the ability to say we're energy independent, that within our own great borders we could provide for our needs, but that's not the case. Even if we were to tap into all the fossil fuel resources we have in our offshore capability in Alaska and elsewhere, we would still not meet our needs.
We can say to ourselves, well, this oil comes from Texas or Oklahoma or Colorado or North Dakota or wherever. The fact of the matter is, oil is a global commodity. Its price is established by the global market. So, in the United States, we use 20% of this globally priced commodity every single year. That creates a demand that makes the price of oil go up.
The best news that you could deliver to the Saudi Arabian oil minister is you're going to drill all you got in the US of A. Because when you finish sucking on that straw and have taken out the last drop, they've still got lots.
The petrodollars go into the hands of nations that have state-owned oil companies that have a direct benefit.
That's inherently a security problem. No matter how much oil we use or where we buy it from, it puts money in the hands of some countries that are problems for us. So any dependence on oil is going to feed into that larger geostrategic challenge. But also, there's a need for the department to change how it uses energy for operational and tactical reasons. Our first priority is to do everything we can to make sure that our men and women in uniform always have the energy they need to conduct their missions.
Growing up in southern West Virginia, I was taught that service to my fellow man is among the highest callings that you can have.
I went to West Point, and that was the best school that anyone that I knew had ever gone to from my high school. We didn't send people to the Ivy Leagues. You know, maybe one guy 1 year went to Army, maybe 2 years later, a guy would go to the Naval Academy. And those are the folks that got away.
Pay the hell attention!
I studied a lot of really highly skilled technical knowledge, some advanced training. And when we got to Iraq, I was appalled at how little of it we actually employed, and just how much time was wasted on getting and protecting fuel.
I spent 23 years in the Marine Corps. I served in the first Gulf War. I did a lot of logistics. That was my primary specialty. Anybody who's ever had to move that amount of material and that amount of troops knows what a big undertaking that is. You obviously use a lot of fuel doing that, so it can be very difficult, very time-consuming, and we spend a lot of resources just moving fuel throughout the battlefield.
We're gonna make it right at the gate.
First 5 years, I was in the military police corps.
Good copy, we're standby.
And the last 6 years, I was a truck driver, 88 Mike. Yeah, I was trained in military police, but you know, we're not just military police out there. We're infantry, we're scouts. We are whatever you need us to be, we'll be. But convoy was always one of those jobs you always have to fall back to. Everybody needs fuel, everybody needs supply. If we go about 70 miles, and we're going to have to refuel. But we always top off anywhere we go to if we have a fueling station.
My job in the Army was I was an 88 Mike, a truck driver. And while I was in Baghdad, my main mission was to deliver supplies and water and fuel. Basically, it's a roll of the dice. And you hope for the best.
I'm security element leader on convoys, and my primary objective is to make sure the safety of the Marines and everything that we escort on these missions.
Oil's good. Oil's good to go.
We take the same route all the time. They say change it up, but there's only so many routes in Iraq you can go.
There's a white sedan with 4 passengers passing on the left brake at about 500 meters past that. In the car? Yeah, just want to. Try to get a look at him when we get.
As a truck driver, my biggest threat was IEDs.
Truck one's hit, truck one's hit.
Our truck is down.
A gunman attacked a convoy, but a driver was killed and more than 24 tankers were destroyed.
I've never felt or seen anything like that in my life.
Call your number. God damn!
Military supply lines have been a target in times of war since people have gone to war, since human beings have been at war. The Russians defeated Napoleon by going after his supply lines. And in World War II, energy was very much oil, fuel, very much a factor in that war.
One of the greatest battles of the European war has been the battle for oil, that lifeblood of an army without which the invasion of Europe would never have been possible.
We'll be traveling today with 2 vehicles and a total of 13 personnel. The TCs are myself and Sergeant Cunningham.
The mission of our entire scout platoon was escorting fuel convoys.
There are 2 new vehicles on the BOLA list, both to be known suicide bombers.
Are there any questions? No questions. No questions. Sure you remain seatbelted at all times. Could be a bump in your eye.
They were scouts, some of the most elite soldiers in an armored battalion. This is what they did. They guarded fuel convoys instead of going out and doing a scout's job.
All right, watch you up.
These efforts create opportunity costs, which mean that those forces are not available to perform other combat missions that are vital to the success of the overall mission.
We lost a tremendous asset that we otherwise would have had, gathering intelligence, engaging the local population, building up our awareness of our area of operations, rooting out the insurgency which we were beginning to see at the time. And the mission that we needed to be working on. No, they were guarding convoys, driving up and down the road. These are soldiers, and these are guys who know the risks that they're taking.
But we were not prepared to have so much of our time consumed by fuel resupply. That supply mission came to dominate everything that we did.
When I squeeze the gas pump, you know, I think about it.
There are a lot of concerns that are interconnected for American security, for national security, but that have to be seen in the context of global security. There's compelling science that demonstrates that the overdependence on carbon-based fuels is resulting in changes to our atmosphere that are indeed affecting our environment, and the changes are profound.
As we look at changes that we are seeing in the Arctic, absolute clear changes. The Arctic is going to be an ocean again, at least for some parts of the year.
Now it becomes a navigable sea. The resources up there could result in competition from several nations, and that is going to have a national security implication in some way.
A Russian mini-sub planted a Russian flag on the ocean floor at the North Pole.
Russia's Navy has a particular importance in resources-rich regions such as the Arctic.
A military source claims that Russia is planning to station troops in the Arctic.
As the sea ice declines, we as an Arctic nation, if we don't act, the Russians will, and they'll be operating off our coast. So we decided that we needed to study the implications of naval operations in the Arctic. We can see the changes happening.
You don't want to believe in science, great. But let's recognize the risk. Let's do something about the risk.
The National Guard's response to flash flood victims is transitioning from emergency and rescue operations to recovery missions.
A powerful storm will begin impacting the New England offshore Monday, the 29th of October, into Thursday, the 1st of November.
The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers deployed 800 experts to assist in recovery. Dewatering 475 million gallons of salt water from New York City, removing 300,000 cubic yards of debris, and installing more than 200 generators.
After the Philippine government requested aid following Typhoon Haiyan, the initial U.S. response was led by Marine Corps Forces Pacific.
We debated the science long enough. Fossil fuels tend to exacerbate environmental issues we have, and you can see the effects of climate change as they impact our national security. The burden on the military will increase as they're forced to respond because they are the best first responders in the world.
Our job is to defend the country. And we do what we need to make that possible. We anticipate the challenges and the threats and the missions that the American people are going to expect us to go on. And looking forward, the department has come to the conclusion that we need to use energy differently in order to do our mission.
Americans by nature, it's in our DNA to look for the next frontier. We have a frontier that's staring us in the face right now on energy. If we have to look at where's the United States Navy going to be 50 or 100 years from today, we better be thinking about how we're going to do this in perpetuity.
When we say we have a military challenge we need to solve, and we want science and technology and innovation to solve that problem for us, there's a long history of military innovation. The internet or GPS, they were to solve a military challenge, and it crossed over into the civilian sector.
It's the world's first electronic computer. Right now, it's solving mathematical problems for the U.S. Army, but who knows, someday a machine like this may check up on your income tax.
There's a huge potential for the armed forces to be an innovation pull in energy.
We are going to be wedded to an energy-dense liquid fuel for some time to come. So therefore, it's either petroleum or it's something else. And if you want an off-ramp from petroleum, you have to investigate alternatives.
The mission that we have today is to deploy a Marine Corps that goes ashore in 2025, and the only thing we need to bring with us is mobility fuels. So all these fossil fuel generators, all these air conditioning, environmental control stuff that's on the battlefield today, we hope we will find alternatives to that.
In the next 10 years, the Air Force Academy plans to generate all of their own electricity through renewable sources.
Secretary of the Air Force Michael Wynne has made it a priority for the Air Force to find alternatives to fossil fuels.
We can run an operations center off of this system as far as radios, computers, printers, lights.
We need to be able to lighten our load. This is about us. This is about what's best for the Marine Corps.
That's going to take a committed research and development effort. That's going to take committed entrepreneurs to help us solve that problem.
A small Spokane Valley company will produce energy-efficient combat outposts.
2, 1, let's open G-Spell.
Government spends a lot of money, and if that money is geared toward innovation, technological development, then obviously that's where industry is going to go. They want the contract, that's where they're going to have to go.
Secretary of the Navy Ray Mabus took part in signing a contract for the largest biofuel purchase in government history.
Those sailors understand this energy imperative and the operational benefits that they're going to receive from alternative fuels and efficient systems.
But remember, there are many of those in government that are fighting it, you know, and some are very powerful.
Green defense over military defense. There are some new questions about that this morning.
So I pulled up your website, and since August, you've given 4 major policy speeches. 3 of those 4 speeches have been about alternative energy. It's a matter of priorities. 3rd top priority you have is to have the Navy lead the nation in sustainable energy. You're not the Secretary of the Energy, you're the Secretary of the Navy.
This helps us address a military vulnerability. It's helping our farmers, it's helping our entrepreneurs, it's helping our industrial base. But the main reason we're doing it is to make us better warfighters, is to make us a better military force.
As a veteran, as a conservative, and as a Republican, I find that I'm here to support the military in any way we can and gear it towards, you know, becoming less dependent upon fossil fuels.
I think the generals know better, much better than the congressmen. They know what they need. I say give them what they need.
It's common sense. I mean, if there's that much casualty from the way we're doing it, plus the price of fuel, seems like an easy fix.
But I think what you find is when most politicians get to Washington, D.C., they're a little bit more concerned about staying in Washington, D.C. than doing what's right.
The Senate will come to order, please.
The House will be in order.
I urge my colleagues to support the troops.
We owe it to our nation's troops.
To support the troops.
We owe it to our young men and women in uniform.
You say you support the troops out of a level of pandering to the mission of patriotism.
Listen to our commanders on the ground, not the ever-changing political winds.
We don't elect members of Congress to listen to the American Petroleum Institute. We elect members of Congress to listen to the people.
I'd say to elected officials, lead, don't follow.
Find a solution that breaks our addiction to oil, that creates new energy jobs, and that cleans up the air.
Congressman Bob Inglis ran into a buzzsaw. Inglis lost every county in the district.
So maybe you have to lose your seat for the sake of the country.
As a congressperson or a senator, come get some veterans, and we will gladly go out there and support you. And then when people say, you know, oh, that's wishy-washy, that's Al Gore, I say, no, that's the Pentagon. That's who I'm listening to.
Yes, I'm talking about Al Gore. Even though his world is crumbling.
So many people are bashing the left. They're missing the bigger point.
There's an article, actually, an article.
That your sons and daughters, and the sons and daughters of your friends, are going over to defend something that we had to defend 20 or 30 years ago, but we don't have to do it anymore. And it's time to move away from it. Because we can. American innovation has allowed us to move away from it. I don't expect Congress to do anything. This has to be more grassroots. I'm just trying to do the right thing. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Calling it a vital national security issue, today, Indianapolis Mayor Greg Ballard announced a plan to phase out city cars and trucks that run on gas and diesel.
It's an emotional issue for this Marine who served in the Gulf War.
I'm getting tired of seeing those folks over there, those young men and women over there, getting injured and coming back dead. So I'm just tired of that. We don't have to do it anymore.
There are currently 200 recharging stations in the city, and more stations will come in phases.
Mayor Ballard hopes other cities will follow.
You got a good seat for the race, I hope?
The mayor of the great city of Indianapolis, Mayor Greg Ballard. Mayor, thank you for being with us.
We really have to start looking at energy as a national security issue. Technology now allows us to move away from that. So let's move away from it and without changing our quality of life. I believe we are starting to change the world from here in the city of Indianapolis. And I got cities that want to help us.
One of the most sustainable and livable cities in the Midwest.
What's holding us back is that so many of the conservatives, of which I am clearly one, do not see the consumption of oil as a national security issue. Well, if you've been in war in the Middle East, as I have,
I suggest you might see that differently. Change is going to come. You can either manage it and shape it the way you want it, or it's just going to happen to you.
The Navy is helping generate civilian jobs through green, innovative technology. It has been a prime customer of algae-based fuel.
As a conservative, I see incredible opportunity. If we applied it in energy, we win the triple play of this American century. We improve the national security of the United States, we create jobs, and we clean up the air.
If we get more oil, and we will, from United States sources, we're still going to be sending billions of dollars every year overseas. What could this country do with an extra $1 billion a day that would stay inside the economy? What don't you like about the fact that we can prevent future generations of men and women in uniform from having to be deployed for fossil fuel?
Our focus is on making a more combat-effective Marine Corps. That's been the beginning of our conversation, and it will be the end of our conversation for us as Marines. We want to give the American people the best force for a reasonable amount of dollar. And using these technologies is not only is it providing great value to the taxpayers, but it's making us more combat-effective. Good warfighters worry about their logistics.
I don't want to send troops over to the Middle East anymore. I don't want to spend that $85 billion a year protecting the oil choke points around the world.
If it saves lives, I don't know, it should be good, right? It should help out if it saves lives.
It's important that we apply the lessons learned in more than a decade of war. The burdens and vulnerabilities we've seen with supply lines in Iraq and Afghanistan will continue to be a problem in future scenarios.
We are in awe of their dedication, courage, and commitment. And keep in your care, we humbly pray, all those who have answered the call to service and who do so in harm's way this day.
It's never going to be a risk-free environment. And we're soldiers. And we know what we signed up for.
That duty, honor, and country be the values that shape their service to the nation.
We're tools in the toolkit for America. When you put us out there, you got to use us wisely and respectfully.
We've already lost too many far away from home because we didn't think about energy enough.
Any one of my friends am I going to bury? But why should I have to? Why should their families have to bear that burden? It's not a cost. It's an investment so that future communities don't have to lose their sons and daughters unnecessarily.
We are going to see our backs against the wall as Americans if we don't change the way we get, transport, and the way we use energy.
How much more powerful would it be if we had sources of energy that weren't geographically dependent?
We'd break free of oil. We'd say to the Middle East, see if you can drink that stuff.